Most people waste years trying to change others, pouring energy into fixing someone else's habits, mindset, or choices, only to end up drained, frustrated, and stuck. The truth is, you don't have control over anyone else's life. You can guide, you can inspire, but you can't rewrite their story. What you can do is take full ownership of your own. The greatest breakthroughs happen when you stop pointing outward and start looking inward. When you channel every ounce of that energy into building your character, mastering your emotions, and elevating your standards. Because the moment you transform yourself, your world changes. Not because they changed, but because you did. You have to understand something deep down. You cannot control another human being. You can influence, you can inspire, you can guide, but you can never truly control their choices, their mindset, or their behavior. And yet, so many people spend their lives tangled up in the exhausting, frustrating trap of trying to change someone else. They push, they plead, they argue, they compromise themselves just to get the other person to see the light. And what happens? The more you try to control someone, the more they resist. The more you try to shape their behavior, the more they cling to it. Why? Because people don't change from being pressured, they change when they decide it's time, when they feel the need within themselves. Think about how much energy, time, and emotion gets burned away trying to fix someone. That's fuel you could have used to fix your own habits, to heal your own wounds, to elevate your own life. And here's the truth: when you stop obsessing over what someone else should do and start focusing on what you can do, everything shifts. Your growth is something you can control, your habits are something you can change, your mindset is something you can rewire. You are the only project that is fully in your hands. That's where your real power is. It's tempting to think that if you just explain things the right way, if you just love them hard enough, if you just sacrifice more of yourself, they'll finally get it. But that's an illusion. That's you chasing control over something that was never yours. And it leaves you drained, bitter, and stuck. You weren't born to be someone's repair shop. You weren't put here to spend all your strength patching up someone who doesn't want to be repaired. You were given your life, your time, and your energy to build something extraordinary within yourself. The irony is, the moment you shift that focus back to yourself, when you stop chasing and start growing, is often the moment others take notice. They see the strength, the discipline, the transformation happening in you. And without you forcing them, without you lecturing or dragging them along, they start to feel the pull to grow too. Real change isn't something you push onto someone else. It's something that radiates from your own example. When you rise, you create a gravitational pull, but that rise doesn't happen if all your energy is leaking out into someone else's problems. Every time you get caught in the trap of, if they would just, everything would be better, you've already surrendered your power. You've given them the keys to your emotional state. You've made your progress conditional on their choices. That's a dangerous place to live. Because what if they never change? What if they never live up to the version you've built for them in your mind? Are you going to put your own life on hold forever waiting for that? You can't afford to do that. You have one shot at this life, and every ounce of energy you pour into controlling someone else is an ounce you're stealing from your own potential. The harsh truth is that sometimes the best thing you can do for someone else is to stop trying to change them and instead start changing yourself. Because maybe they'll see your growth and follow, or maybe they won't. Either way, you've reclaimed your power. That doesn't mean you stop caring. That doesn't mean you cut off your compassion. It means you set boundaries. It means you recognize the line between helping and controlling, between supporting and sacrificing yourself. It means you accept that your responsibility is to live at your highest standard, not to drag someone else there. And when you live at your highest standard, you become the kind of person who naturally attracts growth-minded people into your life, people who fuel your energy instead of draining it. The key is to remember that the only person you can truly lead 24/7 is yourself. The only mindset you can control is your own. The only habits you can force into existence are the ones you commit to building. So the next time you feel yourself getting pulled into the exhausting cycle of trying to fix someone else, stop and ask yourself, what could I be doing right now to build myself instead? What could I be learning, strengthening, or creating in my own life that would make me so unch most people live their entire lives waiting for someone else to validate them, to approve of their choices, to tell them they're enough? They let other people's opinions dictate their direction, their dreams, even their self-worth. And here's the problem: when you hand your self-esteem over to someone else, you've given them control over your life. You've made your potential conditional on their mood, their beliefs, their perspective. That's a dangerous bargain because people's opinions are unstable. They shift based on their own insecurities, their own experiences, their own limited view of you. And if you let that steer you, you'll be living in a constant state of hesitation and second guessing. You've got to decide that your worth is non-negotiable, that no matter who approves, who criticizes, who misunderstands you, you're moving forward anyway. The truth is, most people aren't even paying as much attention to you as you think. They're too wrapped up in their own lives, their own struggles, their own fears, and the ones who do criticize, 9 times out of 10, they're speaking from their own limitations, not yours. They project their doubts because they can't imagine what's possible beyond their own comfort zone. If you take their opinion as truth, you shrink yourself down to fit inside their box. The only opinion that should hold the highest weight in your life is your own, the version of you that's striving to be better, to grow, to break limits. That's the voice you've got to train yourself to listen to. But that voice doesn't get louder by accident. You've got to strengthen it like a muscle. Every time you choose to act on your own conviction instead of someone else's doubt, you're building self-trust. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you're proving that your word matters more than any outside approval. When you chase approval, you play small. You take fewer risks because you're afraid of failing in front of someone. You water down your ideas because you want them to be acceptable. But the life you're meant to live is not going to be acceptable to everyone. Big dreams disrupt people's comfort zones, not just yours, but theirs too. If you're doing something meaningful, there will always be someone who doesn't get it. That's not a sign you're wrong. That's a sign you're on the edge of growth. The moment you stop worrying about whether everyone will like it and start asking, will I respect myself for doing this? You unlock a different level of freedom. Because now your measure of success isn't how many people clap for you, it's how aligned you feel with who you want to become. And when you operate from that place, you start to notice something powerful. The opinions that used to weigh you down start to lose their grip. They become background noise instead of the main voice in your head. It's not that criticism disappears, it never will. It's that you no longer give it authority over your actions. You hear it, you filter it, and you take only what's useful if it aligns with your values and your vision. The rest, you let it go. That's how you keep your energy clean. That's how you stay focused on building instead of defending. But here's the part most people miss: when you stop living for approval, you actually become more magnetic. People are drawn to confidence, to authenticity, to someone who's not bending themselves into knots just to be liked. You start attracting the right kind of relationships, the right opportunities, the right energy, because you're living as your unfiltered self. And that's where real influence comes from. Not from chasing acceptance, but from standing so firmly in who you are that others feel empowered to do the same. The truth is, you will never silence every critic. You will never get universal approval, but you don't need it. You don't need the world to agree with you to do something great. You need to agree with yourself. You need to back yourself when no one else will. You need to make decisions that keep you proud when no one's watching. That's how you build a life that's yours, not a life shaped by the shifting opinions of people who won't even remember what they said about you a year from now. Unshakable, I no longer need to control anyone else just to feel secure. Most people believe that changing the people around them is the key to finding peace, fulfillment, or progress. They think if only my partner, my boss, my friend, my family member would act differently, everything would be better. But the reality is, you can't control another person's mindset, behavior, or choices. You can't make someone grow if they're not ready. You can't force someone to see life the way you do. And the more you try to fix them, the more frustrated and powerless you'll feel because you're putting your energy into something that's completely outside your control. The shift happens when you realize the real work isn't changing them, it's changing you. When you focus on your growth, your standards, your mindset, your actions, everything starts to transform. You may not be able to change them, but you can change the way you respond to them. You can change what you tolerate, what you engage in, and how much space you allow negativity to take up in your life. That's where your power lies, in the control you have over yourself. When you take full ownership of your own development, you stop making your happiness conditional on someone else's evolution. You stop waiting for them to finally get it before you start living the way you want to live. You create boundaries that protect your peace. You start feeding your mind with things that strengthen you instead of drain you. And as you grow, you naturally change the dynamics of every relationship you're in because you've changed the energy you bring into it. Here's the thing. People resist change when it's forced on them, but they can be inspired by change when they witness it. When you stop trying to preach, convince, or push, and instead focus on becoming the strongest, most grounded version of yourself, you give others a living example of what's possible. Some will be inspired to follow your lead. Others won't. That's okay. Your growth isn't about controlling their path. It's about elevating your own. Think about how much energy you've wasted in the past arguing with someone who didn't want to hear your point of view. Think about how drained you felt trying to get them to see the world the way you do. Now imagine what would happen if you redirected all that energy into building your own strength, your own skills, your own resilience. Every hour you spend trying to fix someone else is an hour you could have invested into becoming unshakable. The moment you take the focus off them and put it on you, you start to notice how much is actually in your control. You can control your habits. You can control your emotional state. You can control the people you choose to give your time to. You can control how you handle stress, how you pursue opportunities, how you react to challenges. That's the foundation of freedom, knowing you don't have to wait for anyone else to change for you to have a better life. And here's something powerful. When you rise, you force the people around you to make a choice. They either grow to meet you at your new level, or they distance themselves because they're not ready to match it. Either way, your life improves because you're no longer stuck in the cycle of dragging people along who don't want to move. You create a space where only those who respect your growth can stay. Stop thinking in terms of fixing and start thinking in terms of leading. Lead with your actions, lead with your discipline, lead with your own transformation. If they want to join you, they will. If they don't, you'll still be moving forward. This is how you break free from the trap of waiting for someone else to become who you think they should be. Because here's the truth, the more you evolve, the less you feel the need to control others. You stop obsessing over their flaws and start refining your own strengths. You stop replaying the same arguments in your head and start creating new visions for your life. You stop shrinking to match their comfort zone and start expanding to match your own potential. That's how real change happens from the inside out. Most people spend their lives waiting for the perfect moment to make a move. They think once things calm down, once the timing feels right, once they have more resources, more clarity, or more support, that's when they'll finally act. But life doesn't work that way. The perfect moment doesn't just show up wrapped on your doorstep. The perfect moment is created through action, and the longer you wait, the more you feed fear, doubt, and hesitation until they grow strong enough to paralyze you. The truth is, momentum is born in the messy middle, not in the comfort of certainty. If you want to transform your life, You've got to be willing to take steps even when you can't see the whole staircase. You have to move forward while the path is still foggy, trusting that the next step will reveal itself once you commit to the first. The people who achieve extraordinary results aren't the ones who had everything figured out before they began. They're the ones who started anyway, learning and adjusting as they went, because they understood that progress is built through movement, not contemplation. Fear will always be there when you're about to step into something new. It's not a sign to stop. It's a sign you're on the edge of growth. You can let fear keep you frozen, or you can use it as fuel to sharpen your focus and heighten your awareness. When you choose action in the face of fear, you rewire your brain to see challenge as an invitation instead of a threat. That's when everything changes, because you stop waiting to feel ready and start creating readiness through action. And here's the reality: the longer you sit still, the heavier your excuses become. The mind starts stacking reasons why now isn't the right time. You start bargaining with yourself, lowering your standards, making peace with mediocrity, telling yourself stories about why you can't or why it's too late. But the moment you take even a small action, you break that cycle. You prove to yourself that movement is possible, that you're capable, that you're in control. That one small step might seem insignificant at first, but it shifts your psychology. It reminds you that you're the one driving your life. Every breakthrough begins with a decision, not a wish, not a plan, not a dream, a decision that says, "This is happening." That decision doesn't need to be backed by a detailed blueprint. It needs to be backed by commitment. Once you make that internal shift, the external actions start to align. You begin to notice opportunities you couldn't see before because your mind was focused on reasons to wait. You start meeting people who can help you move forward because you're now moving in their direction. You have to understand that hesitation kills dreams more than failure ever could. Failure, at least, teaches you something. Hesitation teaches you nothing but regret. You can recover from a mistake, but you can't recover the time you lost waiting for the stars to align. So you have to be willing to step into the arena before you feel completely prepared. You have to act like someone who trusts themselves to figure things out as they go. That's how you build confidence, not by avoiding challenges until you feel ready, but by facing challenges and proving to yourself you can handle them. Momentum compounds, one action leads to another, and soon you've built a rhythm. You start stacking small wins, and those wins build belief. That belief fuels bigger actions, and those actions create bigger results. Before you know it, you're moving faster than you ever thought possible, not because you had a flawless plan, but because you had the courage to begin. People will watch you and think you had it all figured out from the start. They won't see the uncertainty, the doubts, the nights you questioned yourself. But you'll know the truth that the difference between where you were and where you are now is simply that you started moving before you had all the answers. You trusted yourself enough to act and grow along the way. When you make the decision to stop trying to fix everyone else and turn that energy inward, everything in your life begins to shift. Most people spend years, even decades, pouring their emotional energy into changing others, believing that if they can just get them to see the truth, act differently, or think the right way, life will finally get better. But the truth is, you can't control someone else's mindset, choices, or behavior. You can influence, you can inspire, you can lead by example, but the moment you attach your happiness, peace, or progress to another person's transformation, you've surrendered your power. The reality is, every ounce of energy you spend trying to rewrite someone else's script is energy stolen from rewriting your own. You could be building your skills, strengthening your mindset, elevating your health, growing your business, deepening your character, but instead, you're stuck in the exhausting cycle of managing other people's lives. And here's the harsh truth: many people don't want to change even if you hand them the blueprint. They're not ready. They may never be ready. But you're ready now, and the only life you have full control over is your own. When you turn the mirror on yourself, You begin to see just how much untapped potential has been sitting dormant because you've been too focused outward. The standards you've been holding for them, it's time to hold those for yourself. The patience you've been extending to them, give that to yourself as you learn and grow. The forgiveness you've been offering them over and over, grant that same grace to yourself for the mistakes you've made. Self-work isn't selfish. It's the most responsible thing you can do for your relationships, your career, your health, and your future. Here's the beauty of this shift. When you change, the dynamic changes. You may not be able to fix someone else, but you can stop enabling behaviors that keep them stuck. You can set boundaries that protect your energy and create space for your growth. And in doing so, you often create the very conditions that force others to either rise to meet you or drift out of your life entirely. Either way, you win because you're no longer living at the mercy of their decisions. Focusing on yourself isn't about building walls or becoming cold. It's about building the inner strength and clarity to live in alignment with your values, regardless of what others choose. When you're grounded in who you are and what you stand for, you stop getting tossed around by other people's storms. You stop reacting to every opinion, mood, or action around you. You become the calm in your own center, and from that place you can make decisions based on vision instead of desperation. And here's the part that surprises most people. When you stop trying to fix others, you often end up inspiring them more than when you were actively trying. People are drawn to those who are walking their talk, those who radiate self-respect and purpose. They see your growth, your discipline, your peace, and it challenges them to look at their own life without you ever saying a word. You can't drag someone into transformation, but you can show them what's possible through the way you live. When you commit fully to fixing yourself, you take back all the leverage you've given away. You stop waiting for apologies before you move forward. You stop needing validation before you believe in yourself. You stop making your emotional weather dependent on someone else's sunshine. And that's when life begins to feel lighter, freer, and more powerful, because you've stopped outsourcing your happiness to people who may never be capable of giving it to you. When you finally accept that your greatest responsibility is to evolve into the strongest, clearest, most grounded version of yourself, you start approaching life with a completely different energy. You stop looking at other people as projects to manage or puzzles to solve, and you start looking at yourself as the foundation everything else is built upon. Every relationship, every opportunity, every challenge, they all shift when you shift. Because the truth is, people often mirror the energy you project. If you're drained, reactive, insecure, or constantly in rescue mode, you'll attract situations that keep you stuck in that cycle. But when you stand tall in your own growth, you naturally set a higher standard for what you allow in your space. Most people don't realize that the reason they feel stuck isn't because of the people around them, it's because they've been avoiding their own work. It's easier to obsess over fixing someone else's habits than to face your own. It's easier to point out where they need discipline than to admit where you've been inconsistent. But the moment you take full ownership, everything changes. Ownership is the starting point of transformation. It's the moment you decide, if I don't like it, I'll change it. If it's not working, I'll improve it. If it hurts me, I'll heal it. That's when you step into real power, because nothing and no one can hold you hostage when you're committed to becoming your best self. This shift in focus doesn't just impact your inner world, it affects how you show up everywhere. When you work on your mindset, you become less reactive in conflicts. When you strengthen your body, you carry yourself differently. When you develop your skills, you operate with more confidence and clarity. Every area you improve sends ripples into your relationships, your work, your finances, your health. It's like upgrading the operating system of your entire life suddenly. Everything runs smoother because the foundation is stronger. But this isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Growth is messy. You will stumble, you will have setbacks, you will face resistance, especially from the part of yourself that's comfortable staying the same. That's normal. The key is to stay in motion. Most people quit the moment it gets uncomfortable, but that's exactly when the real growth begins. The discomfort you feel when you push beyond your patterns is proof that you're rewiring yourself for something better. And once you get a taste of that breakthrough, you'll realize how much time you've wasted trying to control things that were never yours to control in the first place. You'll also notice that as you rise, not everyone will cheer. Some people will be uncomfortable with your growth because it forces them to confront their own stagnation. That's okay. Your mission isn't to carry them along, it's to keep moving toward the life you're capable of living. The right people will match your energy, the wrong ones will naturally fall away. You don't have to force it, you don't have to explain it. You just keep doing the work on yourself and the rest sorts itself out. Over time, you'll see that fixing yourself isn't about being selfish, it's about being responsible. You can't lead others if you're falling apart inside. You can't give your best if you're running on empty. You can't create lasting impact if you're constantly reacting to external chaos. By putting in the work on yourself, you become the kind of person who can lead, love, and serve from a place of strength instead of exhaustion. That's when your presence becomes more valuable than your words, because people can feel the stability, clarity, and confidence you carry. And maybe the most freeing part of all, when you focus on fixing yourself, you stop depending on anyone else to make you feel whole. You stop chasing validation. You stop waiting for someone to change so you can finally be happy. You realize that your growth, your peace, your purpose are in your hands, and no one can take that from you. That's the kind of power that no outside force can touch, because it's built from the inside out.